You know, every once in a while you watch a hearing, and within the first minute, you can already tell it's going to turn into one of those moments that people are talking about for days. That's exactly what happened here. I clicked on this thinking it was going to be another routine Senate exchange about sports policy, but almost immediately the questions got uncomfortable, the answers got awkward, and you could feel the tension building in the room. One senator kept asking what seemed like a very simple question, and instead of getting a direct answer, the conversation kept going in circles. As I watched, I kept thinking, where is this going? Then Riley Gaines started explaining what happened during her NCAA championship. And honestly, if you haven't seen this clip yet, stick around because this hearing takes some interesting turns. Before we get into everything, welcome back to the Political Brief. If you're new here, this is the channel where we break down the biggest political stories, react to the latest hearings and interviews, and give you a perspective that you probably won't hear from much of the mainstream media. If you believe in honest conversations, common sense, and standing up for the values that built this country, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you enjoy this video, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments because I really want to hear where you stand on this issue. Now, let's get into it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Title IX was a landmark civil rights law. It helped create the incredible breadth of women's sports and girls' sports that we see across the country. I believe in girls' sports. I believe in women's sports. I'm the proud father of two daughters who are both athletes. I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters, and they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young, but you have demonstrated incredible courage. And because you have dared to speak up, you have been demonized, you have been vilified. I saw when you were attacked by a leftist mob at San Francisco State University for daring to speak up. You had an incredible record as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. You were a two-time NCAA All-American. You were a five-time SEC champion. You're an SEC record holder and a two-time Olympic trial qualifier. But yet on March 27th, 2022, something changed. What happened on March 17th, 2022?
That's when Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle and again resulted in a tie.
And so you tied. What was the consequence of tying?
We went behind the awards podium where typically you're handed your trophy, you're marched out, you're named an All-American. And so we go back there, and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, but you guys tied. And we only have one trophy, therefore we're giving this trophy to Leah." And I question this, and I say, why? And at first, I shortened it in my testimony, but really he stumbled on his words. He didn't know how to answer this. And at first he's, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. To which I further pressed, and I said, okay, well, what are you being chronological about? Because we tied. And if we're doing this off alphabetical order, G comes before T. So what are you being chronological about? To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, we have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures. They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures. You can pose with this trophy, but you have to give yours back. You have to go home empty-handed. Leah Thomas takes the trophy home. End of story.
Now, let me ask you, as someone who's competed at the elite level, in your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course. I think we learned this at a very young age, watching even 12 and unders play. Going through puberty causes irreversible advantage, that no matter the training, no matter the diet, no matter any alterable change you can make, will overcome that male advantage. Especially in sports like swimming, where lung capacity matters so much. Even something as silly as throat size, men have on average a 40% larger throat, which sounds like it's nothing, but when you're grasping for air, that 40% larger throat makes a huge difference in athletic success, not to mention height. You guys know the differences.
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women,
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
what I can say here is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition
Okay, I'm
happened,
going to try again.
the rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes/no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the
that a yes?
conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is
but
that
I
a
also
yes?
think
So I'm
that
trying to
when
get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech.
Is
there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're
which
not
is
answering
different
that.
than
Let me ask
gender.
you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply saying that that sex is
My
different
question,
than gender.
why
and I
do-
believe
why
that
do
women's
women's
sports
sports
have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson, please answer the question I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
Why do women's sports exist?
I think that there are so many positive benefits to sports.
But
I mean,
why have a
we've talked
separate
about it here
category for
today.
women? If there's no difference between women and men, why to have women's sports?
I'm saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that the NCAA has rules in place, which they have for the last decade.
Mr. Chairman,
which
I
determine
would
that
like to enter into
related
the
to
record an
participation.
article from Duke Law called Comparing Athletic Performances for the Best Elite Women to Boys and Men. And it goes through examining in 2017 the top records for women in the world in various track and field events. So, for example, in the 100 meter, the top record for women in the world was 10.71 seconds. Now, that record for the number one woman in the world in 2017 was, in the year 2017, broken by 124 boys under 18. In that same year, the record for the number one competing woman in the 100-meter dash in the world was broken by a total of 2,474 men. If the radical Democrat agenda to destroy girls' sports and women's sports succeeds, little girls will not have a chance to compete. So I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
Without objection. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, a recent
Right from the beginning, the senator starts by talking about Title IX. That's important because this isn't just some random political talking point. Title IX changed opportunities for millions of women and girls across America. It opened doors for female athletes who otherwise might never have had the chance to compete at high levels. And I actually think it's important to point that out because sometimes people frame this discussion as if everyone on one side suddenly dislikes women's sports. That's not what I'm seeing from conservatives. If anything, what I've consistently heard from many conservatives is that Title IX created opportunities worth protecting. The senator then says something that caught my attention. He talks about being the father of 2 daughters who are athletes and says he believes girls' sports matter. Whether you agree with every political point he makes or not, he's clearly framing his argument around preserving female athletic competition. Then he turns to Riley Gaines. Now, if you followed this issue over the last several years, you probably already know who Riley Gaines is. She's become one of the most recognizable voices speaking about fairness in women's sports because she experienced one of the biggest controversies firsthand. As she starts explaining what happened during the NCAA championships, I have to admit I was listening carefully because hearing someone describe an event they actually participated in carries a different weight than hearing commentators argue about it afterward. She describes tying in the race. A tie, same finish, same result. But according to her testimony, only one trophy was immediately awarded, and she says she was told the other competitor needed it for the photographs. She says she could pose with it temporarily, but would ultimately leave without taking it home. Now, if that's exactly how it unfolded, I completely understand why she felt frustrated. Think about it from her perspective. You train for years. You sacrifice weekends. You spend countless hours in the pool. You make enormous personal commitments to compete at the highest collegiate level. Then you finish with the exact same time as another athlete, and yet you walk away feeling like your achievement became secondary. Whether someone agrees with the NCAA's policies or not, that's clearly an experience that shaped why she's speaking out today. Another thing that stood out to me was that she wasn't talking about a hypothetical situation. She was talking about something she personally experienced. That matters because debates often become abstract. Politicians argue, activists argue, experts argue, but athletes are the people actually competing. As the hearing continues, the senator begins asking questions about biological differences between males and females. This is where the hearing really becomes tense. He asks what appears to be a straightforward question. Is there a difference between men and women? Instead of getting a direct yes or no, the witness repeatedly shifts toward discussing distinctions between biological sex and gender. Now, to be fair, that's a real distinction that many people make in public policy discussions, and it's part of the broader debate over how sports organizations should develop eligibility rules. But it's also true that the senator was asking a narrower question, and viewers are likely to interpret the exchange differently depending on their own views. From my perspective as someone with a conservative viewpoint, I think one reason these clips resonate with so many people is because many Americans believe biological differences between males and females can matter in athletic performance, particularly in sports involving speed, strength, power, or endurance. That's why organizations spend so much time debating eligibility rules in the first place. Then Riley Gaines starts listing examples: height, lung capacity, body structure, other physical characteristics. Her broader point is that puberty can produce athletic advantages that aren't fully eliminated by later medical interventions. That's a position shared by many athletes and is also reflected in ongoing scientific and policy debates, although there are differing views about how these findings should translate into sports rules. Then comes another question that I think really frames the senator's argument. If there are no meaningful distinctions relevant to athletic competition, why have separate women's sports at all? That's clearly the point he's trying to make. Again, people watching this hearing will come away with different conclusions. Some will argue inclusion should remain the priority. Others will argue competitive fairness should come first. Personally, I think preserving meaningful competitive opportunities for female athletes is an important consideration. At the same time, I also recognize that this is an area where people hold deeply different views and policymakers are trying to balance multiple interests. Later in the hearing, the senator references athletic performance data comparing elite women with male athletes. His argument is that, in many events, large numbers of boys and men record faster times than the top female competitors, which he presents as evidence that sex-based categories in sports serve a competitive purpose. Whether someone finds that persuasive or not, it's clear that this is one of the central arguments driving the policy debate. What strikes me watching hearings like this isn't just the disagreement itself. It's how difficult it has become to even have these conversations without everyone immediately assuming the worst about people who disagree. Some people genuinely prioritize inclusion. Others genuinely prioritize competitive fairness and the integrity of women's categories. Those priorities can come into conflict, and elected officials are trying to work through that conflict in public. One thing I think is undeniable is that this issue isn't going away anytime soon. State legislatures continue debating it. Sports governing bodies continue updating their rules. Courts continue hearing legal challenges. Parents continue discussing it at school board meetings. Athletes continue speaking out. And voters continue paying attention. Whether you agree with Riley Gaines or not, she's become a major figure in this national conversation because she experienced one of the most high-profile controversies in college sports. As for me, I think protecting opportunities for girls and women in sports is a legitimate public policy goal. I also think these discussions are more productive when people engage with the arguments directly rather than assuming bad faith from everyone who disagrees. That's why hearings like this matter. They put different viewpoints on the record. They allow witnesses to explain their experiences, and they give the public an opportunity to judge the arguments for themselves. I want to know what you think after watching this exchange. Did you think the questions deserved more direct answers? Do you think current athletic policies strike the right balance? Or do you believe changes are needed? Leave your thoughts in the comments because I read as many of them as I can, and respectful debate is always welcome here. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more reactions to congressional hearings, political debates, and the biggest stories shaping America, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Political Brief, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.